the US military industrial intelligence complex, they sought to turn weather into a force multiplier for 7 military operations. 1, weather modification. 2, environment geophysical modification. 3, electromagnetic manipulation. 4, full spectrum military domain. 5, biological manipulation. 6, intelligence and surveillance. Finally, detection or obscuration of exotic propulsion technologies. But then again, that said, the secret space program is a very expensive toy. And if you're the elite, you need money. And the question is, where do you get the money from? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us today, Astronaut. Welcome to Astronaut Media. Today, my guest, well, I've been a fan, a reader, a follower, an admirer. Her name is Elena Freeland, and she's going to talk to us about scary stuff. I think one of the books that, one of the scariest books that I've ever read, and I read quite a few, is one of the first books I read. Your first book, first of all, Elena, thank you so much for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. Did I tell you that I read a book of yours years ago?
Which one?
I was absolutely knocked out. I don't remember. It was that many years ago.
It might have been the true story of the Bilderberg group. That's my first book that came out, my presentation card about these very private organizations that, you know, do all kinds of nasty stuff. But anyway, we're going to be talking about your private stuff, and that's very, very exciting. So your last book, or the new one that's coming out right now, is called The Geoengineered Transhuman, the Hidden Technologies of Far Chemtrails, 5G, 6G, Nanotechnology, Synthetic Biology, and the Scientific Effort to Transform Humanity. And so basically, you know, building on decades and decades of research, what you do is you offer a comprehensive expose of the transhumanist agenda. This is a book I published back in 2012. Okay, Transevolution, the Coming Age of Human Deconstruction. So the transformation of humanity into what you call a slave class by means of biotechnology, genetic engineering, molecular nanotechnology, artificial intelligence. But again, the first book of yours I read, going back to about 2014, it was called Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth. And it had a profound effect of my understanding what's going on up there. Because one of the things, you remember that film that came out a few years ago, Don't Look Up, okay? And so we walk, I like to look at people. And when I see people, they all look on their stupid telephones or look down at their feet. And I want to say to them, why don't you ever look up? Like, the world is up there. That's the stuff you should be concerned about. Anyway, let's get into this, because I have so many questions I want to ask you. So is there a way, because for the layperson, we have about 500,000 people who are going to watch this. Is there a way to know if many of the hurricanes, for example, are man-made events, directed energy technology, and also used as weapons of war? Or maybe they're natural disasters?
Now, you're asking me how I would prove that, because that's exactly what I go through in Chemtrails, HAARP. The very first book is to really break down, for example, Fukushima, to break it down and how that would work, and how, I mean, to make a hurricane and to make an earthquake is very easy. It is not rocket science, as they say, but you need a very sophisticated technology if you're going to actually not just do one or two of those, but you're going to have power over every single incident that you want on planet Earth. And that's, to me, it's like comparing this with the building of local weather systems. It's so different. This one is huge, and it is weapon grade. It is classified. So in doing research on classified things, you need to go deep into the internet and be pretty savvy to how you put things together, because like the story of Isis and Osiris, where Isis has to go out on the Nile and look for the pieces of her brother's body that have been cut up and scattered all over the place. This is the same thing to do this kind of research. You have to be able to weigh these things and then let them percolate. I mean, I'm talking to a writer, so he knows. There is a way to do writing where you're dealing with like a Sherlock Holmes situation. The body is gone, the weapons are not there, and yet a murder has been created there. So how do you find out? You become very skilled at reading between the lines and also being able to define terms in ways that are not being said. And I think that's the key if I were to say how I was able to do this. But you notice if you read, I have people who read all the books I write. So they go over these books and they understand that when I did Chemtrails HARP and was talking about Fukushima, and I was also talking about weather derivatives, I was basically, to me, that's the primer on the whole thing. If you want to know what geoengineering really is up to, that's the book to read, even though some things are missing from that book because they were missing from my research. Each book led me to a new tier of the technology. So I had to keep going.
So you mentioned technology. So the technology that was initially developed back in the 1990s under HARP was an appendix of the Strategic Defense Initiative, Star Wars, that it was called at the time. And so for our readers or our audience, so from a military point of view, HARP, which was officially abolished, back in 2014, is a weapon of mass destruction that operates from the outer atmosphere and is capable of literally destabilizing agricultural, ecological systems around the world. So we have thermal and non-thermal radiation, we have chemtrails, ionospheric heaters like HARP. They're creating extreme weather conditions and also militarizing the environment. Am I on the right track?
Oh yeah, you are. And it seems to me that for people to understand it, it's important to realize that when they vanished HARP in 2014, all they did was they held some meetings with the University of Alaska and Fairbanks, and it sounded like they were going to either take it apart, forget it. There's no way. I knew that was a lie. That would never happen. This technology is way too advanced and important. And the other option was, well, University of Alaska is going to take it over and rent it out to people on the weekends or for several weeks or months at a time or whatever. Okay, so it's all a story. But then they had a meeting that is on the net. It was a Senate hearing in Alaska. And now we hear directly from the US Air Force. And the story is that HARP is actually a tremendous advance in that we now control the ionosphere. Whoa, what? I'm listening. Control the ionosphere. I mean, that's huge. That's all the way from maybe 12 miles up to when you're going into the magnetosphere, which also surrounds the Earth. It's as though we have these almost spiritual bodies, definitely plasma bodies around the Earth in protection from the sun's solar rays, yes, from solar flares, yes, all that stuff, the CMEs, but it's really because this planet is alive. And you know, Daniel, that I'm a student of Rudolf Steiner. So I've been very influenced by Steiner in realizing that this planet is living. You put a seed in the soil, boom, here comes something green. I mean, how magical can you get about the living planet? So we have this technology, which is basically a huge weapon system. Who's it against? Well, initially, it appeared to be being used as a way to control nations. And that's pretty much how far I thought of it when I did Chemtrails HARP. The only fly in the ointment was about the Morgellons that was happening. And I was friends with Clifford Carnicom, the only scientist I know of who in the late 1990s or 2000s was actually collecting data on what exactly was going on when these jets would pass over northern New Mexico and leave this big trail. He knew that it was not a contrail because he's a chemist. He knows how to read signatures like that. And he realized it was chemical trails, and he began to collect the detritus that would come down and started looking at it. And I was one of the people that happened to meet him then and got very involved. I had always loved biology. I had a double major in college in biology. And so we're looking through the microscope And there's this little wiggly thing in there. So he devised the red wine test, and we had people, not many at that time, about a dozen, and of course myself, sloshing red wine in the mouth and then spitting it into a petri dish or some clean cup, and then waiting for the sediment to settle, and then seeing that there's something wiggling across the bottom of the cup.
Let me stop you for 1 second. I just want to, for our audience, a lot of the information that you're listening to, not only in Elena's interview, but so many other interviews you've done over the years, we can't possibly put them on social media because, well, as you know, our channels will be immediately eliminated, will be banned. It's the kind of information that the elite do not want you to have access to. So if you want to see these types of interviews, please join us at schiller.media, sign up to our channels, help us out, give us a hand. Again, this is the kind of stuff you'll want to know because we are in the business of offering knowledge.